What would you do if 12 doors slammed in your face? For most people, rejection ends the story. For one woman, it was just the beginning. And her refusal to quit built a billion-dollar empire loved by millions. The train from Manchester to London rattled along the tracks on a gray afternoon in 1990. J.K. Rowling sat by the window, staring at raindrops chasing each other down the glass. The train slowed, stopped, and sat still for what felt like forever. She didn't have a pen, no notebook, nothing to capture the thought that suddenly came to her. In her mind, she saw him, a thin, scruffy boy, with glasses slightly crooked on his nose, a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead, standing on a train platform, all alone. She didn't know his name yet. She didn't know where he'd go. But she knew this was different. This wasn't a passing idea. This was the start of something that made her heart race. Only weeks later, life struck a cruel blow. Her mother passed away after a decade-long illness. Rowling was 25, and grief was a shadow that swallowed her whole. She couldn't call home anymore, couldn't share the boy in her head with the one person who'd have listened without judgment. The pain was sharp, but the story became her lifeline. She poured her emotions into scenes: love, loss, friendship, courage. And every word she wrote was like stitching herself back together. Looking for escape, she moved to Porto, Portugal, to teach English. The streets were alive with cafe chatter, the smell of baked bread and sea air. She fell in love, married, and soon had a baby girl. But the fairy tale unraveled quickly. The marriage became a storm. In 1993, she left with her daughter, a single suitcase, and a heart heavy with uncertainty. She boarded a flight back to the UK, not knowing how she would survive. Edinburgh in winter was cold enough to bite through layers. Rowling couldn't afford to heat her flat all day, so she bundled her daughter in blankets and headed to cafes. The smell of coffee mixed with the sound of scribbling pens and clinking cups. She sat in the corner, writing furiously, while her daughter napped in a stroller beside her. This was resilience in motion, not glamorous, not comfortable, but determined. In 1995, she finished the manuscript of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. She packaged the first 3 chapters neatly, slipped them into an envelope, and sent them to a publisher. Weeks later, the reply came. It was polite, professional, and crushing. Not what we're looking for. She stared at the letter, heart sinking. Then she tucked it away in a folder. If nothing else, it was proof that she had tried. The second rejection felt worse. The third, a punch to the gut. By the 7th, she almost didn't open the envelope. By the 12th, she had memorized the pattern. Your work is not suitable. Your work will not sell. But she had learned to twist the sting into fuel. She began to read between the lines, tiny hints, small compliments, feedback she could use. Psychologists call this cognitive reframing, the art of turning a no into information. When Bloomsbury Publishing called, it didn't sound like a dream-come-true moment. The editor liked her story, but told her to get a day job because children's books don't make money. It was hardly the glowing fairy tale she imagined. Still, it was a yes. And after 12 no's, a yes, no matter how cautious, was gold. In 1997, the book was published. Just 500 copies. She could imagine them sitting on a single bookshelf somewhere, unnoticed. But children began to talk. Teachers noticed reluctant readers leaning over desks, grinning at the pages. Parents asked bookstores for more. The magic had started to spill beyond the paper. She won a Nestlé Smarties Book Prize. Invitations came to speak at schools. For the first time, she wasn't wondering how to pay the next bill. But the climb was only beginning. Her resilience had carried her to the starting line. The race was still ahead. By 1998, the sequel, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, was on shelves. Demand exploded. U.S. publishers entered a bidding war, ending with Scholastic paying a record $105,000 for the American rights. For someone who had once lived on welfare, it was a number almost impossible to believe. Her secret wasn't just spells and wands. She understood human nature, loneliness, bravery, betrayal, love. She wrote characters who felt real, so readers didn't just observe the story, they lived it. Brain science calls it the mirror neuron effect, when your mind reacts to a fictional experience as if it were happening to you. That's why her readers laughed, cried, and grew up with Harry. In 1999, Warner Brothers bought the film rights for $1 million. Negotiations were tough. She wasn't a businesswoman by training, but she insisted on keeping creative control. That was self-efficacy, the belief that her actions could directly influence the outcome. When the first film premiered in 2001, the line outside theaters wrapped around city blocks. By the mid-2000s, she was among the wealthiest women in the world. But she didn't forget standing in line at the welfare office. She quietly gave millions to charities, funded medical research, and supported single parents. For her, success meant remembering the road she came from. Fame came with shadows, harsh media scrutiny, internet battles, and public disagreements. Some would have retreated. Rowling practiced selective attention, focusing on the people who believed in her, the causes she cared about, and the work she still wanted to do. In 2007, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows launched at midnight. Bookstores turned into festival grounds. Fans in wizard robes counted down like it was New Year's Eve. The first 24 hours shattered records. 11 million copies sold. For millions, this wasn't just a book release. It was the end of a shared childhood. She wrote crime novels under a pen name, screenplays for the Wizarding World films, and continued philanthropy. Not every project soared, but that never stopped her. She knew failure was just part of the process. From a cold Edinburgh cafe to influencing generations worldwide, her story wasn't about magic tricks. It was about the psychology of refusing to quit, resilience, reframing, and relentless belief in the value of her work. That's what made her unstoppable. 12 rejections, years of poverty, heartbreak that could have broken her forever, and yet she kept going. That's the psychology of resilience, turning pain into purpose, rejection into direction, and dreams into reality. If she could do it with nothing but a pen and an idea, imagine what you can do with what you have right now. If this story moved you, imagine what the next one could do. Hit subscribe for more real-life psychology stories, and like this video to help it reach someone who needs it today.